We've certainly got some amazing weather today. 15 degrees, full sun and no wind whatsoever. A brilliant time to be outdoors. And of course, we're only outdoors because we're sowing more seeds today. I'm going to start off some peas. When you get your peas, they're like that. So they're dehydrated basically. And if you want to start them off as soon as possible, soak them into water overnight. And then peas will then swell up. And then you can plant them. So they're soaking. We'll plant those tomorrow. But what we are doing today is dwarf French beans. And this one is called Elba. It's also a stringless bean as well, which is even better. But a word of warning when it comes to French beans. Don't sow them outside at the moment because they'll not work. It's too cool still at night. What you want to do, if you want to start them off early, is sow them into pots and then put them indoors or in a greenhouse and put bubble wrap over them as well. They can't stand cold at all these. So for now, that's what we're going to be doing. If you do want to just directly sow them outside, you can do that from May onwards, just not this time of year. So we'll get some pots and some compost and we'll get some of these started. It really is an amazing day. It's like being in a different country all of a sudden. So I'm going to sieve some compost and then we'll get these planted. What I'm going to be putting these in 9cm pots. Bean plants can grow quite big, quite quickly. They'll get quite a good root system very early on, but when the plant comes out, it's usually about this wide, and that's why I don't grow them in cells. If I put them in them pots, I can leave them until they're about this tall before I need to move them. And also, if you're going to grow dwarf French beans, you want to do another sowing of these every few weeks because they don't crop for as long as your full-size beans. So if you want a steady supply all the way through season, then just keep resowing more. Also, when we fill these pots, we're going to have to compact it down a little bit because we want to take it out at some point and then just transplant it straight into its final container without disturbing that root system too much. So just going to fill it with compost. I'm going to press it down, thumb press it down like that. So we've got a nice firm base in there. And that's pretty much all you need to do with that. And then we'll just top it back off. But don't compact it down second time because you want to get your beans in and you don't want to be forcing them. These are ones that are left over from last year because you get quite a lot in a pack. And because the dwarf French beans, they are a little bit smaller than you might be used to. So, as easy as, I just push it in to about depth of my fingernail and then just cover it over. I'll just smooth top off of that. And that's one done. And I wouldn't put 2 seeds in a pot. Just stick to one. And if you want a particular amount of beans, then just sow more than you need. So once again, filling pot, compacting it down, and then just top it off. And you're set up for another one. And again, fingernail depth. Cover it. As quick as that, you've got 2 done. So I'm going to do about 6 at the moment. That'll be enough for me. But I will be sowing some more a little bit later in the season. There's one thing about these seeds that you may know or you may not. It's hard to tell on these small seeds, but if you look at your French bean seed, you'll notice on one side it's got like a little mark across there, and then you've got the domed part on top. And that, if you do see the line, is where your roots are going to come from. It's quite difficult to see on these seeds. So if you wanted to, you could plant it in that pot with that line facing downwards, so then your roots will go straight down, and then this top part, the dome part, will open up, and that is where your plant comes from. And the only way that speeds that process up is, if it's the wrong way around, that seed needs to turn in that soil. But you don't have to do that. It's just something I used to do in the past. Either way, they'll still germinate, and they'll come out perfectly fine. So in a very short space of time, we're nearly done. Another quick look at that rhubarb plant, and you can see in just a week how much that's come on. And the same goes for those raspberries. Even more shoots appearing now, thanks to this weather we're having. And as parsley is also on its way. That primula is also now starting to put out lots of flowers. It's really good to see this early in year. And if you take a look at these peppers, you can see that we're now starting to get this first set of true leaves. So we've got us French beans on its way now, and make sure you give them a good watering. And as I said a bit earlier in video, if you want to keep getting French beans all the way through the year and you're growing dwarf varieties, just keep re-sowing them every 3 weeks or so and you'll never run out. But also, back to that seed box, because now we're starting to see a bit better weather, it's time to start thinking about tomatoes. But once again, they need to be sown indoors. Don't try and sow any outside, because if you get a frost, it'll just kill those plants outright. But you can start them off now. Once we're at May, most people will have passed the last frost date. So you're good to go. And any plants that you grow indoors, you can move outdoors to your greenhouse, or you can put them in containers outside like we do and offer a bit of protection just in case it drops cold one night. But they don't take too long to germinate, and they grow quite quick once they've got going. But we'll be putting them in those 12 cells as well, and then we'll transplant them at a later date. And as you've seen before, those cells only take up that much room on your table or your windowsill. So if you want to start doing some tomatoes, get them started off as well. And I've been looking at these potatoes that we've put on table for chitting. It's only been a few days, but you can now see they're on the way. So that's great news. We're going to let them get to about 1 centimetre and then we'll be planting them, and that's as potatoes done. We're going to do another batch of Charlottes at a later date so we can stagger those harvests. Obviously that's because we know they don't keep for too long, but we're not doing main crops. I think I mentioned that in previous video. But if you want something in between and you don't want the small new potatoes as they call them, then try any variety of second early, because they usually all come out around about the same size, and that is a perfect example of what you're looking at, and they can actually grow a bit bigger than that. Plus they only take 17 weeks or so, depending on weather, to reach maturity, and you'll know when they're ready, because if you get flowers on your plants, that means then they're starting to grow tubers. Eventually those flowers will fall off and the plant will start to look a little bit worse for wear. But don't forget to feed them as well. They need the feed, and they need potassium, phosphorus and nitrogen. And also, don't overfeed your potatoes with nitrogen. Once they get to the stage where they're starting to put on lots of foliage, that's when you need to feed them a bit more of the other two. But that is for another video. But it's really good to see the weather that we've got today, and it's going to be the same tomorrow. So it's been a long time coming, but we are getting there now. So it's an encouragement to any gardener to just want to get out there and get some seeds sown, which is exactly what we're doing this week. We'll plant those peas tomorrow when they're ready, and we do plant them in a particular way, and we'll cover that in tomorrow's video. And hopefully by then I'll have found tomato seeds, but if not, I'll pop out and I'll buy a fresh pack. And we're going to be doing dwarf tomato plants this year. We did quite a few in big containers, full size ones, but I think this year I might try a couple of different bush varieties. So a determinate tomato plant, for example. Indeterminates are ones that are vining plants, so they'll just continue growing all the way through the year, and I'm sure we've all experienced how quickly those plants can get out of control. But if you use a determinate one, then that will only grow to a certain size, and there's all different varieties. Some only grow to about 6 inches tall, but you can get some that grow to a couple of feet, and they will flower, set the fruit all at the same time. All that fruit will ripen, and that plant is then finished. And that's the difference between determinate tomatoes and indeterminate. So what we like to do is grow lots of bush or dwarf tomato plants, because we can put them in quite small containers and we'll still get a really good harvest all the way through the year. And in fact, last year I was giving tomatoes away because I was getting that many, And obviously you're only going to get cherry tomatoes from those type of plants. But I'm quite happy with that. So something else for another day. We'll have a dig through that box. We'll see if we've got any seeds left from last year. And if we haven't, it's a perfect opportunity for me to pop out and maybe get a couple of different varieties this year, just to see how they go. Anyway, thank you so much for being on board, and thank you to all the new subscribers that have been commenting and saying how much they like the channel. I really appreciate that. And if you want to see what we do with those peas tomorrow, and maybe what type of tomatoes we're going to be planting, then please hit that subscribe button and press that notifications bell. And I'll see you back here on another really nice, warm, sunny day. Take care.